factors that really make a difference.
Sorry, I said to reset our live stream. You know how technology is, it never works the way you want it to. There we are. Okay, so the next question I have, I'm going to combine our last two questions together because I think they kind of go hand in hand. If we were to look 6 months, a year, or 2 years into the future, what do you think it's going to look like in Canada? And what changes and innovations would help Canada thrive in these areas?
Bigger first answer. I'll let these guys speak to a lot of the other stuff. I'm not a technical person per se. I think Canada can really, and as we're doing in so many things internationally in so many industries, I think Canada can really take a leading role, and I mean this. And you could say I'm betting on it. But what needs to happen, from my perspective, is we need to really start looking at, and I know the government tried this, original content. And actually making stuff that not just is made here, but the rights remain here. Canada's film industry is like, was it 3.2 or 3 billion last time they checked? 3.18 billion of that is service work. And that money just leaves the country. And if you talk to crew, they're all happy in the moment. We all get paid really well, etc. But, you know, a couple of the guys have talked about keeping the business going. These, you know, it's a gig economy. All of that money leaves. Okay. And in my opinion, like, this is the #1 thing we need to look at in this country. And it's not even going to make us the first ones to do it. The UK does it. France absolutely puts a gun to your head if you want to shoot there, if you're a big streamer. And I love them for it, because you owe us this much money to make original French content then. Okay? As only the French can do, because they have no problem just saying it. That's why I love them. Okay. Other countries are doing it. I didn't, and I'm going to own this. I didn't understand it when the government first started doing it. Now that I'm actually, you know, part of this business on the content side, it is the #1 thing. In my career alone, I have decided that unless it's something really interesting, I'm not doing service work anymore. It is a road to nowhere, both personally and then these entire industries, especially the small to medium cities, who have seen a lot of growth, not anymore. And I'm on the front lines. You're going to start seeing that. And what it is that, and I could do a whole thing on this, so I'll end it up the math of it. Those cities, all they do is service work. And anyone who thinks that, yeah, but that company, they're taking like a cut, or they're getting paid X, they're getting their rental, they're doing their true cost. That person who's a producer, they're taking their producer's fee, not some company fee, a producer's fee. There is not a lot of money left when they leave town. On the technical side, I'll leave it to these guys. But I will say this though, Montreal's killing it. They have a lot of great companies who do that shit.
Ben, you have your hand raised.
This is interesting. I was just trying to find this study while we're on this call around, because I think what we're seeing right now and projecting forward in 2 years, like, we don't know what really is going to happen with tariffs. God knows, we could have another black swan event like a COVID or whatever. But if you just look at the current trends, we as Canadians tend to consume US content and international content at a vastly higher rate than we do local content. Crave, which is one of our few streamers, is, I think, we're like 34th in Canadian consumption. Like, we rarely really seek out Canadian made content, which is ironic because we make some of the best content, some of our best creative, globally. And from Hollywood, we get incredible creative coming from Canada, but our audience here is so kind of focused on American and Hollywood content that we really lose out. So whether or not there can be a cultural shift that starts having us get excited about domestic content, which requires all sorts of funding challenges and blah blah blah. But you get things like Schitt's Creek and Letterkenny and all these great shows that do kind of cut through. So there's a trend. Wondering if we can build on it because we have untapped potential in that space. As importantly, and as we look at what's happening in the U.S. right now with the policies and the tariffs and who knows what else, we are well positioned as an industry globally. Canada has some of the highest amounts, I think, of 3D co-production agreements out of any country in the world. So you can do co-production projects in a lot of different markets that most other countries would want to be in and work with. And those co-productions, for those who aren't familiar, are ways for two organizations in two different countries to capitalize on various incentives in either country, tax credits, funds, you name it. So we are well situated. And the amazing thing is we are, a mini Hollywood. We've got all the capacity, we've got all the talent, we've got all the good ideas, got great IP. And while we try to look at IP going south into the States or even staying domestic, we also have an opportunity to sell it globally and into markets that really are looking for fresh voices, fresh ideas that aren't just more out of Hollywood, which I think is a really great opportunity. So my hope here is that you can use both of those as levers to start strengthening the IP economy in Canada, because I think Joey's right. Like, service work is what's kind of held us up and kept us going. And you cannot look a gift horse in the mouth and say, well, we should stop altogether. It is what keeps everyone working. It's really, really important for our economy. But we've become so reliant on it that our system of tax credits and incentives is designed to keep foreign producers coming here with their productions to spend their money. Yeah, it gets impacted at, well, a lot of it goes out the door. You're putting a lot of people through, giving people employment that gets back into kind of the economy as things like that too. But you are reliant on it. And there needs to be a place where we can start finding ways to activate Canadian IP. And last piece on this is when we look at those earlier questions around diminishing box office, broadcast landscape is changing, but we're seeing growth in places like social media and short form content and other forms of content. Canadians do really well in that space as well. So maybe this is also where instead of trying to replicate the US success across the legacy channels, we start looking for places where Canadian content really sings on these new platforms and formats. So I think we've got a lot of opportunity in that case, and we're nimble enough and we're well structured enough to be able to get in there. It's just a matter of, can we generate a will, and can you get the audience excited enough to come along with you? Because if they don't, none of this
Jonathan?
I think we need to continue investing like we do right now in our technology R&D to really bring the efficiency of our industry in Canada to the most competitive level. That's going to be the game changer. Each studio we work really on same problems, and we don't share much technology. We reinvent the same pipeline wheel every place that does the same thing. We need to stop that. We need to try to develop common technologies that we share that makes us all more efficient and focusing on telling great stories. So that's why I'm here today. It's because I think that this what's happening here is very, very important. We have to continue develop our talent in research to make very, very, very more efficient moves in our production workflows.
Richard?
Yeah, I want to echo what Jonathan said, that as much as, and again, even the IP stuff, that's totally true. Like we have all the talent, we have all the resources here that if we are coming up with our own IP, we can create really, really great content. But at the same time, we have to keep investing in tech, in upscaling our talent, because that's what's gonna show the value that we can do this. We can do this at the world level, and we are already doing it. Like, so much stuff happens here, but I feel that having that our own IP and reinvesting that in self, within Canada, it's just gonna push that even further, right? Because everybody's looking for faster and cheaper content, because for all the various factors that we have talked about, and we can do it. I just feel that people need to realize that it needs to happen within Canada more than us doing it and sending it out of Canada. So it's a common issue for everything. We want to have more IPs, but we also want to keep investing in tech that could be Unreal stuff, it could be AI, it could be virtual pipelines, like whatever that is, like, but we gotta do that. And of course, social media is there, right? So all of those can actually get into social media, but it's just doing it within Canada. That's huge.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been a very, very interesting discussion. We do have a couple minutes if there's any questions from the audience. Chris, all the way in the back.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You can speak a little louder. That would be great.
You can come down further.
Sure.
So I don't have a question specifically, but I do have a comment which wasn't really raised. And my comment is that I think one of the big problems with cinema and one of the big problems with the industry is the content right now is pretty crap. Right? Like if you go back and you look at it, you look at some of the things that we've seen in sort of that's come out in the cinema, you see like, you know, for example, the Marvel-centric universe, right? They had a nice little run and now they're producing rubbish. And you've seen a lot of other stuff and it's repetitive, the storyline hasn't changed, they're not doing anything different. But the other big thing that they're doing, which is probably where it's kind of a catch-22, is they're relying on more and more visual experiences. So from my mind, and coming back to the questions earlier that we had in the other panel, is that if you're getting crappy content coming into the cinema and you're getting crappy content on the TV, and now you're looking at AI and it's also producing crappy content, you're just swapping one crappy content for the other crappy content. And what you really want is you want the industry to do, if they want the industry to survive without the AI kind of taking over, is you need to produce better content. Discuss.
You'll get no argument from me, but I will say that just as somebody who reads a lot of scripts and talks about things that are getting made, storytelling is becoming cool again. Texture is becoming cool again. It hasn't reached the consumer as much, granted, but this is a conversation a lot of people are having. And I think the audiences are there.
We have to take risks and put out new things, try new things. Because the sequel of the sequel of the sequel, we're bored, bored about.
Yes.
Yeah, we've lost the
I'm going to offer a contrary opinion. And we're getting a bit of multi-infinite mirror on the feed there, just in case anyone's watching. I couldn't agree more in that I think a certain cohort of viewers is tired of same, low risk, high budget MCU stuff. We can't ignore the fact that the MCU is the highest grossing IP in history. And that when you're Disney and you're in that business and you're one of the few remaining large studios, your job is to continue to make shareholder value. And these things work and people still go. And, you know, as much as we want to look at what might be considered rubbish from one lens, there's a large group of people who don't care. Or in fact, it's not that they don't care, it's that they actually enjoy it. And I always have to remind myself, the deeper you get into a space where you become more of an expert, you often end up getting a far more nuanced and probably privileged view of what's good and what's bad. But there's a large mass of people who don't have that same opinion. And they are the people spending the money. So you're getting a lot of the same because it's working. And that's kind of sucks if you're creative because it's like, yeah, but where are the new ideas? Where are the good ideas? I think the marketplace needs to shift, or you know, we need to start seeing opportunities for those people to get funded or for audiences to actually show up in a way that's meaningful, to start seeing more of it. But I do actually think that's also occurring. It's just, it's in different places now. You know, the A24s of the world, and I reference them because they're doing such a good job of creating new content, although there's a great meme about, you know, the Mad Libs where you can fill in a blank and, you know, I need a noun, I need a verb. And someone made an A24 Mad Lib where it's like, I need a blank situation where a blank set of people come and the twist is the blank. So, you know, eventually they become even formulaic, but people are certainly interested in it. I think they're also now looking for the place where that stuff, that interesting stuff happens that maybe it just isn't where we are used to seeing it. It's not in the theater as much as it is online. Maybe it's some of the streamers who are taking risks. Maybe it's against the YouTubers who are starting to lean away from low quality, I've just turned on my phone content and actually taking the time to create cinematic content that's quite compelling and quite interesting. So I think I'm not sure if the rubbish piece alone is enough for us to shift. I think it's certainly there's a space where there's an audience craving more. It's a matter of will it ever come back to the theater in a meaningful way or television, or will it start to kind of find its place somewhere else? Like, you know, review cinemas and small cinemas or festivals or other platforms.
That's a good point. Risk, is the risk worth it for the unique content, the content with a depth of storytelling? And I
There
hope
is,
so as well.
oh, sorry, I know we're at the end. I just want to point out there's a really interesting initiative for anyone who's interested called Content Camp. I think they're out of Texas. And it's a bit of, I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors right now, but the idea is really interesting where they're trying to create theatrical quality content on super micro budgets. And they're trying to raise funding to help content creators who are of a new generation, who have access to the great equipment, who have great ideas, who want to make stuff so that they can create and put things into the spaces like we're describing. So instead of saying, yeah, you can be successful on YouTube, it's like, well, how do we get this stuff into theaters? So there's certainly a lot of movements that are, I think, trying to uncover new ideas and help support the people who want to make them and know that they don't need as much money. It's just, it's still early.
Well, that's good to hear. All right, I think we're on time. So thank you so much, Joey, Jonathan, Ben, and Richard for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to have this conversation with us. We really appreciate it. So thank you. And
So much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.
all right, and for anyone who wants, you're welcome, of course, to stick around. We'll be having some faculty research presentations in about 15 minutes to see what some of us have been doing in this general area. That's a really fun picture.
It's a nice outro.
I've never seen them.
I've never seen that one before either. All right. So thank you. And